So that barn right there is exactly the same age as Henry Ford.
Go to the front, Michael.
How you doing?
Okay. Oh, you sit in the back? Okay.
Hey,
Hey, you are, Jay.
my name's Jim. I'll be your driver.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So this is a T, right?
This is a 1926 Model T.
1926.
So what time frames did they make Model Ts?
1908 to 1927.
Wow.
During those 19 years, they made just over 15 million of them.
15 million. So now, was that the plant on Woodward there?
Yes, near the Davison and 6 Mile.
Yeah, I used to drive past that. I worked at the GM headquarters.
Okay.
And it was right past that. It was because it was still up until the 90s. It was still like not functional. It was still standing at least.
Yeah, I think there's only one little section of it left that they haven't torn down.
Yeah, they don't need the whole thing, but having a piece of it is quite a bit of history. Oh wow. So what, is there any technique to driving it?
Yes, it's actually confusing. So,
Yeah, like I see you just accelerated with the right hand.
yes, this is my throttle. Then on the left side of the steering column is the spark advance.
Spark advance?
Yeah, keep in mind that you probably weren't burning gasoline all of the time back then.
What were
You may have
burning?
been kerosene,
Oh, okay.
anything actually with a flash point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like a
When you're one of the first cars to be produced, gas stations are on every street corner like they are now.
And it wasn't gasoline like a
It was a
byproduct of something else?
of kerosene, I think.
Okay, yeah.
And everybody was using the kerosene for their gas lamps.
So, is everything on this original or part of it restored?
Well, it's been restored that when a part wears out, we replace it with a replacement part, but made to the same specifications.
Oh, made. Do you have a special group of mechanics that are skilled only to work on these vehicles?
Yes.
Wow. Now, but on the other hand, they're a very simple engine.
Correct. It's all 15 million Model Ts have exactly the same engine in them. It's a 4-cylinder, 20 horsepower motor with a 2-speed transmission. And the whole thing works on a planetary gear, so it's bands that slide back and forth. So the 3 pedals on the floor, the rightmost pedal is the brake, the center pedal is for reverse, and the leftmost pedal is the 3-position clutch. When my foot's off of it and the clutch is all the way in the high position, you're in high gear. Right now I have it pushed part way down, so we're in neutral, and when I push it all the way to the floor, we go into low gear. So to take off from a dead stop, I'm going to take my right foot off the brake, my left foot's going to go all the way to the floor. I'm going to pull back.
That's low gear, like
low
first.
gear. I'm pulling back on the throttle so we don't stall it. Now to go into high gear, I reduce the throttle, ease off on the clutch. Now my foot's totally off that clutch pedal. Pull back on the throttle, and we're in high gear.
So they've been making this one for, if it's 26, they've been making it for 26 years almost, or 20 years or so by then. So they perfected it pretty well, although it didn't change much.
Well, they didn't change it.
So the body a little bit.
The body, and they went from gas lights to electric lights. They moved the gas tank from underneath the front seat up here to the engine cowl. But very minor changes on these cars.
Wow, so that's amazing that the thing they started with was still satisfactory. Now on the other hand, the competition.
Well, and satisfactory by whose standard? Henry Ford standards, it was all anybody needed.
Right.
To all of his advisors, including his son, Edsel, it was time to move on past the Model T And Henry Ford wouldn't do it until Ford Motor Company lost about $10 million that last year that he produced the Model T.
Wow. Because everybody else was like V8s and 6.
Well, think about it. When you buy your first Model T, you're trading in a horse. You buy your second Model T, you're trading in a Model T. And you haven't changed anything. What am I excited about?
Shiny or black.
Yeah.
Did he design this for the masses, like so
Oh, definitely.
it's affordable for everybody?
Yes. The Model T, when it was introduced in 1908, was $850, which was a lot of money back then.
Yeah, it was.
But other cars of the day were significantly more money.
20,000 back then money.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it was, and they took about 12 hours to assemble by hand. 1914, you know, so you're a few years into the Model T production, they introduced the moving assembly line at the Highland Park plant there on Woodward Avenue. And then they keep making improvements to it. So by the time you get to 1923, the price comes down to $260.
Wow.
And the assembly time comes down to 93 minutes.
Wow.
That's the impact of the assembly line. You know, when...
So that part improved quite a bit.
I'm sorry?
That part improved quite a bit.
Yes.
Even though they didn't change the parts.
Yeah.
The putting them together got better and better.
And probably by not changing anything, it really allowed him to tackle the idea of the assembly line, is what I found. You know, if they would have been in a constant change mode, would they have been able to make that type of progress on the assembly line?
Right. Like right now we're converting to electric. That whole, we're going to lose money for quite some time.
Yeah. Well, I always think, you know, back when I was growing up, that GMI graduated how many industrial engineers every year, whose sole purpose was to take a couple minutes off the assembly time of every car that came through the plant.
They took the letter E off employee to save one letter of ink.
You know, I mean,
But then it started costing them money because all the word processors then auto-corrected to two E's and they had to back up and do one E. So all the human time was lost just back to backspacing. But that's amazing. So now I've seen these on sale on like eBay and stuff. People are selling these things. You can buy one that runs for like $1,500 or $15,000 or something.
Yeah.
Maybe not even that much.
Yeah. Well, there's still about 200,000 Model Ts out there. Which
200,000?
Yep.
And then the parts don't rust. Like Jay Leno said, he just went to some guy's yard and he had a whole bunch of Model T parts. No rust. You just pick it up and put it in the car and it works.
Why don't the parts rust?
Yeah, that I don't know.
But he's quite the fan of the Model T. Now, the one I wish they had in the museum was the Baker Electric, which is that electric car that looks like a powder room.
Okay.
It was like 1903 or something, electric car.
Now, the gentleman who loaded you into the car today,
Yeah.
Lee up here, he made an arrangement for all of us to go through the storage. Okay, we're going in to see the 15 millionth Model T. Okay, here's where Model.
He was the chief engineer.
That's where he kept all his money, apparently.
Back in the early days.
We're gonna need a bigger safe.
I was just telling her how he wanted to create a car that everyone could own.
Well, seeing all these Model Ts on the road only proves that we did exactly what we planned to do.
And what was that, Mr. Wells?
Well, only to create a reliable, efficient, sturdy car that was reasonably priced. And we had to make sure that it could handle all types of terrain. You have to remember, Miss Dunbar, in the early 1900s.
Now, one note, when I lived here in Michigan, I used to drive past the Model T plant on Woodward and about 6 Mile Road. Part of it's still there. Most of it's been since torn down.
And here is one of the engines from there. And the 15 millionth Model T. Pretty interesting.
Single most common form of Model T was called a five-passenger touring car.
Five-passenger?
Five-passenger touring,
Okay.
the body style. And Model T sold very much on price. They were the most affordable car of their time, which is what their big success really was depending on. And over half of the Model Ts ever built were this body style.
Really?
So you could get fully enclosed versions of the Model T over many years, but like a four-door sedan that held 5 people that was fully enclosed was about twice the price of this car.
Wow.
So people who are looking for their first car and were used to riding in an open carriage in the winter, all bundled up, until they got used to more creature comforts, this was the car that they would buy. They got more for their money.
And maintainability is just if you could work on lawn equipment, you could maintain this thing kind of thing.
Yes, yes. In fact, the owner's manual initially, probably the entire life cycle of the Model T, it actually instructed how to, if you wanted to lap the valves, do a quick valve job on your car, it showed you how to do it. Anybody who had some tools and some mechanical knowledge could do it as a Saturday afternoon project.
Now, is this one of those? How did you? It was running when we stepped in. How does this start? Is it one of those crank things in front, or?
All Model Ts from 1908 all the way through 1927 have a crank in the front.
Really?
So all of them can be crank started. The electric start was available starting in 1919.
Oh, pretty early then.
Yeah. Well, General Motors got it available in 1911, I think.
Wow.
But they had a patent protection. They acquired Delco, and Delco invented that. So Ford could offer it starting in 1919 as a factory option. Dealers could add it to the car if it wasn't on something that somebody wanted it. And it also could be retrofitted to earlier cars. So the long story short is every car we have in our fleet here is electric start.
Okay, because you could lose an arm going the other way.
Yeah, you can at least break a wrist.
Yeah. A painful break on top of that.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm perfectly happy not to experience that. So we can and sometimes demonstrate how to start the car using a hand crank. But for our ordinary daily operations, it's nice to be able to use the electric start.
Oh, so like my stick shift car, I could start rolling it. You could start it by hand cranking it if you want to.
Correct.
Okay. What's that brass thing right there? Oh, your right foot.
There?
Yeah.
That is, up here.
Yeah.
That is the choke.
The choke. Okay. All right. So
Carburetors on that side of the engine.
Yeah.
This was back when anything that was the slightest bit remote, usually the physical location was determined in a very pragmatic way. Like all 3 of these pedals are really levers that operate through the floor, and each one of them was into the side of the transmission.
Wow. So the transmission's right there. So they're there.
Right here. And all 3 of those operate bands in the transmission. The one on the right is the brake, believe it or not. The service brake stops the drive shaft, which in turn stops the rear wheels.
Okay, so it's not a caliper brakes like we have disc brakes like we have now.
It's basically a transmission band.
Wow.
So it's a strap of metal wrapped around a drum, and it's got a friction material on it. Back in the day, that was practically like water paper.
Wow.
One concession to modernity is the bands you can buy today have Kevlar on them. They last a lot longer.
So is that grinding noise we're hearing right there is the brake actually holding onto the transmission?
The grinding you hear right now
Yeah.
is actually another, there are 3 bands, and I'm holding this neutral position.
Oh, okay.
So now I'm leaving it neutral position with the handbrake actually keeps it in neutral if it's half applied.
Oh, okay.
So middle pedal gives you reverse. Pedal to the left, when I push it all the way down, it'll be low gear. And if you listen carefully, you'll hear square cut gears making lots of noise. The noise you hear in low gear is the transmission, basically. That bracket, it's all transmission. Once I upshift, notice how quiet it got? Wow, now you're just feeling the engine. Wow. In the high gear, transmission is all locked together, 1-to-1.
So that's so every rotation is
All the gear train rotates on mass.
wow.
And in low gear, those square cut gears are meshing with each other, and they make quite a racket. It also makes a racket in reverse. The transmission is different than a stick shift that everybody got used to.
Right.
Slightly later than Model T. Ford adopted the 3-on-the-floor type of transmission in the Model A, and a lot of other brands of cars even before that.
What came after the T? The A?
There were actually 2 Model A's in the history of Ford. The first car that Henry Ford built under the banner of Ford Motor Company was in 1903, and that was the Model A.
Oh, okay.
And the Model A of 1928 was considered a new beginning.
Oh, that's when it went to A again.
Yes, so it was back to the beginning of the alphabet. So Model Ts, they started in 1908, and they were produced late 1908, and they were produced through the middle of 1927.
That's amazing. That's quite a run.
And there were, yes, it is, and there were over 15 million of them built and sold.
Wow.
In fact, if you want to stick your head into the gray building behind where you're waiting for the car,
Yeah. The 15 million plus there.
story gray building, probably worth 5 minutes of your time to go in there and take a look at the display shows what the engine is like, cutaway, transmission, and the 15 millionth Model T, the actual 15 millionth car, is sitting in there.
Wow.
And it might be the only unused Model T you'll ever see.
Oh, and it's unused on top of that. Wow.
Correct. That went straight from the assembly line into the museum.
Wow.
Or like that's set aside to go into the museum, which wasn't built till a year later.